Hello, my children. Hasnotalent here, doing something a little bit different today. You may be a little surprised at the title of this video, thinking that with all my critique and massive dookies that have taken on Dishonored 2 and Death of the Outsider, you may think I'm not a fan of Arkane Studios. That couldn't be further from the truth though, and I wanted to take this time to pay my respects to a company that has brought me hundreds of hours of entertainment, fun, joy, and has taken me into interesting and breathtaking worlds filled with magic and mystery. I guess I feel like I need to give back some positivity, and not only that, but it's just fair as well. If I'm going to shit all over what's wrong, why not highlight what's great? I do actually try to do this during my critiques, but I figured it's time to give it its own video and share why I think that Arkane Studios is one of the best game developers on Earth. Now, this isn't going to be super in-depth, and I'm just going to be touching on things rather briskly. However, I would like to start with a small history lesson. Arkane Studios was founded by Raphael Colantonio, who is a Frenchman, although his name makes you think of Ezio Auditore di Firenze Spaghetti Lasagnetini. Anyway, he formerly worked at Electronic Arts, but when they told him that he was going to work on the 19th Madden and that his paycheck would be randomized in loot boxes, he decided to leave the studio and set off on his own. Before he found his calling, however, he did work briefly for Info Games, is it Info Grant? Why is it a gay armadillo? Anyway, after leaving MDMA Armadillo, he convinced his creepy Uncle Teddy to loan him $40, and he was finally able to start the company he always dreamed of, and that company was Arkane Studios. Now, Arkane Studios' first foray into the game design world was originally supposed to be a sequel to Ultima Underworld. However, Colantonio's old friends at EA owned the rights to Ultima, and they said that if he wanted to make a sequel using their property, he would have to include Day 1 DLC and make sure it ran on their prototype 56K modem form of origin. After Colantonio realized that he could get around this by making literally the exact same game except not calling it Ultima, he proceeded to tell EA to suck in his Champs-Élysées-loving ass. The game that would eventually get made would be Arx Fatalis. However, not all things were soft hits and sunshine, as coffers were running low, and Arkane had yet to find a publisher. Shouldn't you figure that out first? Thankfully, though, a publisher named Joe Wood Productions, who you may be familiar with as they were the publisher for Chaser, a game famously covered by the OG Inside Gaming crew, who are now known as Funhouse. Anyway, Joe's Erection picked up the game, and it finally made it to stores in 2002. The game was quite well received, however it only made $35 of the $40 back for Teddy, so the hunt was still on for Arkane's next big hit. Valve's Gabe Newell would end up playing the game, and it tickled his chins just so much, he suggested Arkane work with their new Source engine, which of course at the time was just a crash-free bastion of good performance. Well, nowadays you can get Source to run on a toaster. At the time the engine was much less stable. It did have great potential and was able to do things that other engines couldn't, but this unfortunately led to a lot of jank and performance problems. Kind of like Void. Anyway, what ends up happening is that Arkane ends up with Ubisoft making not Arx Fatalis 2 like they wanted, but rather Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. They do end up using the Source engine, and I don't know how the game did money-wise, but I can tell you right now that it was fucking awesome. After Dark Messiah, Arkane made a game called The Crossing, which was a one-of-a-kind game that combined single and multiplayer and just sounded hype as fuck, but the game got canceled because of course it did. After this, their old buddies at EA got in contact with them to make a game called LMNO, which after EA realized the disc wouldn't be able to hold enough microtransactions, decided to cancel as well. Shortly after this, some things happened that nobody cares about, and then, one fateful summer eve, when the breeze was soft and the sunset beautiful, Colantonio ran into his old acquaintance, Harvey Smith. After sharing a wonderful dinner for two, they stood out on a dock overlooking the water, stared deeply into each other's eyes, and formed a solid business strategy for the designing and releasing of Dishonored 1. This, of course, led to their purchase by Bethesda, where they went on to release Dishonored 1, Dishonored 2, Dishonored Death of the Outsider, and Dishonored in Space. This brings us up to speed and ends my Hasnotalent approved history of Arkane Studios, which, in case you're an idiot, may have been peppered with a bit of satire. All this leads to what I actually want to talk about today, and that's why I love Arkane Studios. Let's start off with the thing that hits you right in the face, atmosphere. It should be amazingly obvious to anyone who has ever played one of Arkane's games that atmosphere is one of those things that the studio just hits right out of the park. Whether it's the dungeons of Arx Fatalis, the rat-infested streets of Dunwall, or the loneliness of Talos 1, every single one of their games just oozes with style and atmosphere. It always seems like atmosphere is something that is studio specific. Some studios just seem to get it. And you can always tell when a studio puts in that little extra bit amount of effort to make the atmosphere as enjoyable and engrossing as possible. In this regard, Arkane is one of the best studios on the planet for making beautiful, believable worlds to get lost in. That's the thing about well-made atmospheric worlds that I love so much and appreciate. You get to truly lose yourself in them. I love the fact that I can forget about real life, forget about all my problems and worries, and just get entirely immersed within the story, the world, and the emotion of these places that Arkane creates. I can feel the desperation of the people as I sneak around Dunwall, the isolation as I'm stalked through Talos 1. I always appreciate games that put this much detail into their worlds because I always try to play immersively. I feel Corvo's anger after seeing Jessamine killed, or for all the destruction that's been caused in its wake. I love the fact that you can, for instance, show the Lord Regent your face before you assassinate him. I love that because that's exactly what I would do in real life. Let them know all they wrought before the end. Atmosphere is something that takes finesse. It's not about big, large vistas and set pieces, although they may be a part of it. What it's really about is the little things, and that's what Arkane understands so well. Whether it's the posters on the walls in Karnaca, the way a body is positioned to tell a story about the person right before they died, the little things the characters may say, or hell, even something like being able to flush the toilets or spin the globes. The secret to making a wonderful new world believable, making it atmospheric, doesn't just come from spectacle, doesn't just come from things that are unique to it. It also comes from the small details, the mundane, the things that no one notices unless you really pay attention. And when you realize they exist and they serve a purpose in their world, just like in ours, that world of theirs becomes just a little bit more believable. Moving on to the thing that just keeps me coming back, let's talk about replayability. The games that Arkane makes are just so replayable, it honestly kind of boggles my mind. Replayability is not as simple as it seems, and I could list for hours all the games I've only ever played once and then never again. That doesn't mean those games are bad per se, some games will always be one-off experiences, but to make a game truly replayable, especially in the modern game design age, it requires really opening up the possibilities available to the player. Some games, like say an Elder Scrolls game, tend to be relatively replayable just by the sheer virtue that you aren't tethered to anything, you aren't really sent in any particular direction, and the game is just open for you to go explore. Because of this, everyone ends up taking a slightly different path, runs into things at different times, and kind of forges their own story through the gameplay. This results in it being inherently replayable because as long as you don't intentionally follow the exact same path, your gameplay experience will be different. In something that's a lot more focused, such as Arkane's games, making them replayable is a much more difficult task. That's why it's so impressive that Arkane's games are as replayable as what they are. Most games that are as focused as what Arkane's games are, you just play through once and add it on the pile, it's done. But Arkane's games, through their ability to produce interesting, varied, and emergent gameplay, you're always drawn back in to keep playing them over and over again. I've been using the term focused as opposed to linear because Arkane's games are not linear at all, despite first glances. The level design is so intricate and wonderful, and you have so many different options, so many different paths that every time you play through a mission, you can discover more and more things that you never discovered before. I've played through Dishonored 1 so many times, and I can honestly say that I have discovered new paths and new ways to beat missions every single time I have played the game. That's just so impressive and incredible, it's honestly insane. I've played hundreds of hours in that game and I still find new ways to play it. In Prey, much of the station is open to you for large sections of the game and you're free to go explore, find missing people, find audio logs, and discover things you may have never seen if you just followed along with the main story. The skill system in Prey can basically change the entire way the game is played, whether you focus on weapons or ways to avoid confrontation, or you could exclusively focus on powers or ignore them completely if you wanted to, which is something I'm totally down for because shotgun for life, yo. I guess what I'm saying is that Arkane is so good at making me want to go back to their games over and over again. I'm always finding new ways to play, new ways to experience their games, and they always fill me with a sense of discovery. The discovery doesn't stop with just finding paths or things like that. It's present itself in their game's emergent gameplay. Just the amount of mileage, the amount of videos and skillers and everything we got out of Dishonored speaks for itself. The fact that you can even have that many hours of gameplay and have it all be different and fresh, have people still discover new things, goes to show how amazing the gameplay is. The ability to take all of these small game mechanics that by themselves may not seem like much, but combine them and make them and interact in ways that's creative is just so much fucking fun. That's why Arkane's games are so wonderful. You're not just a player, you're an artist as creative as any painter. Or perhaps you're a sculptor and the game's mechanics are your clay. Arkane's games always give me a very powerful feeling, like anything is possible if I put my mind to it. And I feel like there's very few games that exist that give you that same level of freedom and that same feeling. There always seems to be new and wonderful ways to interact with their games to keep them fresh and interesting. They really are the type of games where they are as fun as what you let yourself have with them. Yeah, if you're super boring, you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and always take the same path. But if you're creative, there's always something new to discover, always something unique you can do, always something to create in a way maybe no one else has ever thought of. Whenever I make a run for Dishonored, I always tried to think of creating a run in a particular light. Whenever I'm designing a run, I think of it like this. All your tools, all your game mechanics, all your powers, they're all like toys laid out on a child's blanket. He has all these toys to play with, and the only limiting thing is his imagination. So you just lay all those toys out, and you try to think of interesting ways they can interact with each other. And it's just such a rarity, such a treat to find a game that lets you do this. A game that lets you lay everything in front of you and combine them in ways that not even the designers thought were possible. All of this is why Arkane makes the best immersive sims on the planet. They understand the value of emergent gameplay, the value of letting the player create their own fun, the value of letting people express themselves in ways that are unique to that player in ways even they never thought possible. Man, there's just so many tiny things that I just fucking love, so many little details that make me all giddy. I'm just gonna list a whole bunch of things that make me happy. Drawing magic spells in Arx Fatalis is so cool and so much fun and makes me feel like a fucking wizard, not the racist kind though. Then Dark Messiah of Might and Magic is honestly one of the most pure fun games I've ever played, and it blew my mind when it came out. I honestly probably put like 15 hours into that game's demo alone. I used to just play it over and over again. I can't even begin to describe how much this game had an impact on me. There's just so much in it that's awesome. Sneaking up behind people to stab feels so satisfying, and then there's that kick that makes people go flying, throwing boxes into people, giant fucking swinging chandeliers, killing everything in their path, the completely ridiculous spike things on the walls, making shit fall on people's heads, kicking people into fires, the dagger adrenaline kill where you throw the one dagger in a dude's face. God, it's so fucking awesome! Making fucking orcs slip on the ice, turning into a demon and being fucking Satan's daughter or whatever, and then there's that sexy ass chick with the big ass titties and the redhead, which means she'll be a demon in the sack, but she'll fuck your life up. Seriously though, boys. Stay away from the redheads. And then in Prey, you can jizz all over the place with the glue gun, and the fucking mimics are so cool and insane. Like, sometimes you just turn into a room, and then one of the little bastards jets behind you, and you quick turn around, and you're not quite sure which of the chairs he just turned into. It's so nerve-wracking and awesome. And that looking glass shit is insane and cool and just trips me the fuck out, especially when you break through the glass and walk through it. In Dishonored, you're just fucking dodging sword slashes, jumping on people's heads, blinking with your sword sheath. The levels are changing based on your actions. There's fucking granny rags. Everything is just so smooth and fluid. It's honestly just wonderful and feels so amazing. The way you can interact with the environment and use your powers, and oh my god, I could just go on for fucking hours. In Dishonored 2, they added all those non-lethal takedowns, and they made it so you can initiate a drop assassination anywhere in the air if you're over top of a guy. Far Reach lets you fling yourself in ways that are fucking awesome, and Domino is cool. You can possess corpses now and blood flies and shit. And they made it so you can either use slow time or stop time, and they extended its duration. You can actually control how high you jump based on how long you hold the key. They made sprint fucking toggle, and in Death of the Outsider, having the movement power be instant is fucking awesome and looks cool, and I love it. And you can sheath your sword and have your power out, or you can sheath your power and have your sword out, which is freaking cool. And those fucking hyperbaric grenades are the most fucking spectacular thing I have ever seen. Oh my god, it's so fucking cool. God, I just fucking love these games. games. Arkane is so fucking awesome. Let me tell you, there's one thing in life that you can't teach, and that one thing is passion. Passion is a drive to do something even when it sucks. Passion is a drive to go just that little bit further. Passion is sleepless nights, damaged relationships, being overworked and still showing up because you truly believe in the thing you're doing. It's doing that one small detail that takes 100 hours that only 2 people are going to notice because doing it would make it just that little bit better. Arkane understands passion. Arkane is passion. I can feel it in every game, every interaction, every little thing extra they do to make their worlds just that much better. I can hear it in every interview, see it in every email. I can tell you for a fact that Arkane cares about their games and their community. They read Reddit, they watch videos, they listen to what we say. They reach out to people in the community to get input about making their games better. They truly care about the people who play their games, and that's something that's very rare, very special, and something you can't teach. To close, I wanted to share a story of mine from Prey. Partway through the game, you're given the opportunity to abandon everything and just leave the station. Leave everyone to their fate and say fuck it. I was really trying to plow through the game fast so I could start working on a video, so I was kind of anxious to get it done and didn't want to spend any more time with it, and here it was, the opportunity to end the game way earlier than planned. So I step into the escape pod and Alex starts talking to me about just giving up, about how he's disappointed. "You're just quitting," he said as I played the beautiful music score and I closed the pod's hatch. I just kind of sat looking out the windows down to the destruction below, listening to the music, thinking about all the people I'd be abandoning and how the station wins if I just give up. How the game wins if I just give up. How the illness I have in real life wins when I just give up. So I opened the hatch, I reloaded my shotgun, and I walked back out into the great unknown because in life, we don't win when we just give up. In that moment, I learned something about myself, and that's why video games can be so beautiful, why they can be more than just games. And that is why I love Arkane Studios.